Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start while we're adding more people from the waiting room.
Hopefully you can hear me out there. My name is Howard Garrett. Hey, Dave. I see you there. This is the 25th anniversary of Orca Network, and this is the end of Orca Action Month. And so we are celebrating by telling stories of bygone days. And Dave, you will know my story whenever it comes up, and I'll probably know yours.
Say what? Oh, sure. Sorry.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
And I did a phone call. Great.
Oh. Yes, a good reminder to turn your cell phones off.
Yes. So it's been an amazing 25 years. Bonnie Gretz seems to not know how to get in and thinks I'm just the person to ask right now. Bonnie, I am starting the actual storytelling now. I am on Zoom. So you have to go to Zoom and get on if that's what you want to do. Bye.
Oh. Let's see.
I'll send her the link.
Yeah, please do.
Or see if Richard might be able to. Yeah.
So 25 years, we've been connecting people with whales in the Pacific Northwest. And lo and behold, 25 years later, oh my God, how many people are connected with whales in the Pacific Northwest? A whole lot more than there were in 2001, I'll tell you that. So it's a wonderful thing to do that. And we are so gratified and appreciative of everyone who has been part of Orca Network in one way or another for a quarter of a century. And I would like to turn it over now to Susan, my partner in crime and in everything else, with her story and her intro.
And I found Bonnie in the waiting room, waiting to be admitted. So she's in now. Thank you, Bonnie. I hope you can hear us now. And I know Bonnie has many stories. It's really great to see a lot of new friends and old friends and people that we don't know yet. And we're really looking forward to hearing all your stories tonight. Last time we did this with Center for Whale Research and with a lot of their former staff, and learned stories of Southern residents that many of us didn't have the chance to know. And it was really an amazing night. And we're really looking forward to this. So I'll try not to go on too long, but we have some exciting news. Besides the wonderful orca preaching on my shirt, we have, after 25 years, I am really happy to be finally transitioning from the executive director role at Orca Network to the founding director and working part-time and stepping back from the day-to-day operations and kind of having to keep track of everything and keeping all the little orcas in a row. And we are so excited to have new staff on board and promoted current staff up to be a part of our administrative staff and program staff and finance staff. And I am just so thankful. And I've been looking forward to this day. I even have time to go actually see some whales. In fact, during a meeting yesterday, we all four got to see whales from the window of a restaurant yesterday. It was wonderful. In fact, we saw Jack. But we had a grant from the Whidbey Community Foundation to help us with our transition and succession plan. And we were also in the process of hiring for an operations director, because Orca Network has grown so incredibly fast, thanks to our wonderful staff and to all our wonderful followers and the different programs that have just grown out of Orca Network, the Whale Center, the Stranding Network, all our education and advocacy programs, and the Whale Sighting Network, which I hope is how many of you got to see whales. And I really want to extend a special thanks to our hardworking sighting network staff who work almost all daylight hours to help people see whales, and through all of your sightings give valuable data to researchers like the Center for Whale Research and Cascadia Research, NOAA Fisheries, the Navy, WDFW, and others. So it's turned out to be what started as just a phone tree to let other volunteers and friends know that, hey, the orcas are coming your way. If you get out there now, you might get to see them, to a huge network that enables people to see whales, but also to be community scientists and share that information and have it be valuable data that helps orca conservationists learn about their habitat use and foraging and health data to help the future generations of southern residents. And it helps the humans watching them learn about the orcas. So I really want to thank all of our staff. But I'm thrilled that we have, well, during our hiring process, we ended up with 2 wonderful candidates for operations director, and we knew we couldn't let either one go. And we were really lucky that one of them also had a background in doing transition training, and she also had a finance background. And our wonderful years-long finance director, Cheryl Payne, wasn't planning on retiring soon, and then needed to retire sooner than she had planned. And it worked out perfectly that we were able to hire Joy Brungart as our operations director and Abby Thies as our finance, well, first for several months as our transition director to help us through the transition, which she did amazingly well with retreats for all of us, our staff, our board, the directors, thanks to the grant from Whitby Community Foundation. And then Stephanie Raymond, who had been our program manager and also educator, and has really helped us with our Share the Water program, doing boater education, has moved up to our so she and Joy are the co-executive directors, Stephanie being the ED over programs and Joy being the ED over operations. So we've moved to a co-director, ED director model, as we've done with many of our programs have co-coordinators, which has worked really well. And so we're really, really proud of our staff and of how just, it's unbelievable how much Orca Network has grown. And our board has grown, and we just feel really good about where Orca Network is and that it has such a solid foundation for the next 25 years, next generation of humans, next generation of orcas, and gray whales, and may they all live long and prosper. So I would like to let each of our new directors have a chance to say something. Let's see, I can't see you all in my screen here. Joy, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Um, well, I am Joy Brungart, and I'm the new co-executive director over operations. And what I do is basically making sure that things like marketing, technology, HR, grants are going well. Basically, I keep the insides of Orca Network operating smoothly. And I am so very happy to be a part of the Orca Network pod. Um, I just love it here. Everyone is so great, and I don't know, I'm so happy every time I'm on Woodby Island as well. It's kind of a magical place. Um, and aside from being a great place to work, I was fascinated the first day, my first day on the job. I didn't have my orientation until later in the day. And so I was reviewing the website and making sure I knew everything from the outside perspective before I got my kind of credentials to see the insides. And I saw that on the Whale Sighting Network, if I drove about an hour, if the orcas stayed going the same direction, I might be able to see them. And even before I had to do my orientation meeting. So I drove that hour and got out and saw other people on the beach, and I saw orcas my first day. It was amazing. So, Whale Sighting Network, you're doing a fantastic job. And with that, I'll hand it to Stephanie.
Thanks, Joy, and thanks, Susan. I can't even really describe how excited I am to be stepping into this role of the co-executive director of programs at Orca Network. This feels like just what is the natural outcome of being a lifelong orca dork, and trying to help people learn about and see these animals for many years throughout my career in different ways. So my role now is to support all the amazing programs that have been going on with Orca Network for so long, the Whale Center, the Sighting Network, the Stranding Network, and our education and advocacy. And it's always interesting work. There's always something new and different every day. You never know what's going to show up, whether it's somebody bringing a whale bone to the Whale Center that they don't know what kind of whale it came from, and we have to help figure that out, or if it's I think within a week of me starting, there was a beluga that showed up in Puget Sound, which nobody expected that either. So it's really wonderful work, and I'm so happy to be here. And I thank Susan and Howie so much for this incredible legacy, and thank you for trusting us to carry it forward into the future. And with that, I'll hand it off to Abby.
Thank you, Stephanie and Joy and Susan and Howard. I'm so pleased to be here. It's so nice to see everybody's smiling faces. One thing that Joy did not mention is that we are both girls from Kansas. And so it's quite a thing for two Kansas landlocked girls to be experiencing, ladies, to be experiencing orcas and whales and the Puget Sound in this way, where we get to know where the whales are, where they're from, what pods they're swimming in. I am daily, even though I'm mostly in spreadsheets and finances where I should be, I am daily fascinated by all of the work that Orca Network does. And I can't wait to hear your stories tonight. I am really excited. I was thrilled to come in as the transition coordinator and go through that process with Orca Network. And even more excited to be in Cheryl Payne's very large shoes as the finance director of Orca Network. And thank you to all the donors out there, folks who do fundraising and in-kind volunteering for us and all the things you do. Thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting and getting to know all of you over the next coming months and years. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you to all of you for listening to that. It's a big and exciting change for us. So we'll get on to the fun stuff of sharing whale stories, which are much more exciting. And I know that's what we all came here for. So how we will do this is anyone who wants to tell a story can get in line by going to their React button. And when you click on it, I'll demonstrate. You can click on it and find the raise hand button. And that puts your hand up. And then that puts you in the queue. And that will put you next, so we'll know who to call on next. So Bonnie gets to be first. And we know she's a very seasoned, she has no stories to tell, I know. She's never going out with the whales. Because I watch her Facebook page. And she's been with the whales longer than where I've known her, and I've known her a long time.
I've known her longer.
I know. So we'll start with Bonnie Gretz, who lives in Coopville now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've known Howie since 1994 from being at the Center for Whale Research as a volunteer with Earthwatch. Susan shortly thereafter. And so that's really cool. You know, and I didn't move to Whidbey until 2011, but I certainly been involved with whales, orcas especially, for a long time. So my first story, I have two stories that are short. The first one is about Nigel, L95, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But I met him when he was a itty bitty tiny calf. And it was in July of 1999, and I was up in San Juan Island with Dennis Kelly, my whale mentor, who unfortunately has passed away. But we were out on a boat, and I can't remember exactly where, but it was within the islands, and surrounded by J-Pod, basically, or J and L-Pod. And Jelly Roll, who was Nigel's mom, I believe she was, I don't remember her number. Oh, L43, I think. Anyway, so she came really, really close to the back of the boat. And everybody was, going, oh my gosh, look how close she is. And this is way before the long, big distance that we have to maintain now. And she had this tiny little calf with her. And she went right by the side of the boat, and then she disappeared. And the baby was right there. He was just bouncing around on top of the water and hanging out fairly close, within, like, say, 20 feet of the boat. And, of course, we were saying hi to him. And eventually she showed back up a distance away. And then he took off and, went back with her. But the fun part, I had my dad cut me out. I have visual aids for everything. I had my dad cut out these things for me. And I painted them. And this is Jelly Roll. And this is Nigel when he was a tiny guy. I didn't make him orange because who knows why. But that was a really fun introduction to Nigel. So, of course, I kept track of him. And when I heard that he had, washed up on the beach dead, I was devastated, because you get so close to the ones that you've had special encounters with. And then my second one is much later, and it involves Mike and J-Pod. And this was in 2017, September of 2017. And I've said this before, but I have kept whale journals ever since I started watching orcas. Every single encounter I've ever had with any kind of whale, I have it written down. So then I can't forget anything. But on this day, I was out on Mystic Sea that I used to be a naturalist on. And we found J-Pod up at Lummi Island. And it was absolutely perfect glass smooth day water. Just sun was out. It was the perfect, whale day. And we came upon them, and they were going crazy. And I have this is a photograph. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of glary. Of Mike breaching like a crazy whale, and he didn't stop. I mean, he just kept going and going and going, and they were all super excited. They weren't hunting; they were just having a really, really good time. So based on that photograph and the subsequent, when you get a breach picture like this, hopefully you have the whole sequence of up and over and down. So based on that, I painted this Mike breaching. Since it was one of the most spectacular days with the weather conditions and all the whales, all of Jade Deer, it was really exciting. So, of course, Mike is also one of my favorites. I think he's the favorite of a lot of people, but I'm glad he's seems to be healthy, and I'm sure he's the dad of some babies, I hope. So anyway, that's two of my stories. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Let's see. Anybody? Karen, Alec, I know you are on the East Coast. Would you like to tell any stories tonight? Because we'd like to give you an earlier chance. Oh, we need to let's see. Can you unmute there?
You're muted, Karen.
Yeah. Jeez.
Way off on the left side, there is a mute button. You have to hit the mute. There we are. All right. You're on.
All right.
You're
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah. If you're ready, but
I'm ready.
I know it's much later for you than it is for
No,
us.
it's fine. I'm here.
Oh, great. Great.
First of all, Howie and Susan, I want to congratulate you on what you have done. As you know, Ralph Monroe and I he was my husband, and we were involved from the very beginning before Orca Network ever existed, because we were by accident actually involved in the case when SeaWorld was capturing whales in Puget Sound. And we were out sailing in Olympia in March of 1976, on March 7th, when we witnessed a pod of orcas being chased by two large boats and a speedboat and a seaplane. And this whole capture took place. And that's really the first time that I had an encounter with orcas. And from there on, you've become involved, and we got to know Ken Balcom at that time. And it was really a life-changing experience for both Ralph and me. What happened that day, and I'll try not to go into too many details, but we were just out sailing with some friends. It was a nice day for early March. It was warm and sunny, and we were going out for a pleasure sail. But as we were leaving the Olympia harbor, we saw a pod of orcas being chased by two large boats and a speedboat and a seaplane. And we realized that it was a crew that was working with SeaWorld. They were to capture the whales and sell them to SeaWorld. And it was a very traumatic day for us. But we watched, and first of all, our captain of the boat tried to get between the orcas and the capture boats. But the guys came out and yelled and swore at us and said, "We belong here. We have permits. You get out of here." And we realized that we weren't going to be able to stop them. So Ralph said, this is awful, but we have to stay and watch and remember everything we see, because it may be important later. So we stayed for several hours as we saw this complete violent and very brutal capture take place. They were driving the whales into a shallow bay in the Olympia harbor. And in order to make them move, they were throwing small explosives and poking them with poles to get them to go into this shallow bay. We were able to just be there watching, although they sometimes yelled at us and said, "You don't belong here, get out of here." But we didn't pay attention to that. And they were separating the young orcas, which they wanted, from their family members, their mothers and their other relatives. And they were crying back and forth to each other. very heartbreaking cries. And then they threw the nets around them, and the orcas, which were outside the nets, wouldn't leave. They kept swimming around and trying to do something to help their captive relatives, but they couldn't. And so we watched and realized that there was nothing more we could really do. And so we headed back into shore. Ralph and I had both been working in the Capitol. He was on the staff of Governor Dan Evans at that time. And we had been working around the Capitol, knew the press members, and we started calling friends in the press that night. Ralph was able to talk to a reporter from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer who was interested and wrote a wonderful story that night, so that the next morning in the Seattle PI, there was a headline on page 1 about the orcas being captured. And after that, the television cameras came down, and it was a big news story. All of a sudden, protesters were coming to the harbor to say, this isn't right. You can't take our orcas out of here and sell them to amusement parks around the country and around the world, which is what they were planning to do. So people were very interested in this, and the governor and the attorney general at the time decided, Ralph encouraged them, that they should investigate and find out about this permit, what it required, and what had happened. So they did find a provision of the permit which said that the whales were to be allowed to swim naturally where they wanted to go and not be herded. And we were witnesses, and there were other witnesses who had been out in their yards and watched them as they drove these whales down from Tacoma all along the water. They were chasing them with the boats. And people said, oh yeah, they came into the courthouse and said, we've seen this. We saw them chasing the whales and throwing explosives at them. And so it was obvious that they were violating their permit. So the state of Washington sued SeaWorld and was able to have a lot of witnesses who just volunteered to come in, and we all submitted affidavits. And so SeaWorld, of course, was very alarmed about this. They had an army of lawyers and public relations people there trying to put their point of view across. But the trial went on for several days. The orcas were still in the nets in the harbor. And finally, the judge, after using some legal language that we didn't quite understand, at the end of the trial, he said, in other words, the whales are to be set free, and SeaWorld agreed that they would never capture orcas in Puget Sound or the Washington waters again, which was a great triumph, and everyone in the courtroom was very excited about this. These were transient orcas which were captured at the time, and one of the females, which was released according to the permit, was able to live and have 28 offspring. And there was a calf which was born the day that Ralph Monroe died. And that calf has been named Monroe and is apparently doing quite well, which I'm very pleased about. At this time, there was also an orca symposium going on at the Evergreen State College in Olympia. So there were orca experts, including Howie's brother, Ken Balcom, who wasn't really doing a lot of research yet, but became a very prominent orca researcher, of course. And they all came down. The people in the symposium just left Evergreen and came down to the harbor. And so the press were there, and the press people were able to talk to these experts and researchers and learn a lot about orcas, which they then were able to transmit to the public in their stories. So it was an interesting and quite a coincidence that Ralph and I happened to be out in this boat, and then that the Orca Symposium was taking place. So it's been quite a story since then. Ralph and I both became very involved with different efforts to help try to get Tokite released, which unfortunately didn't happen. but we've been involved with Howie and Susan and Ken, and it's been really a wonderful and life-changing experience for me and for Ralph, who died last year. And I think that's about all I would say, except that I'm just so pleased and proud of what you have done, you all have done, to build up this orca network so that people can find the orcas very easily and learn about them. And I think it's been very, very important for our state and for really the whole country, because people have learned a great deal about orcas from all of this.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you. And you and Ralph did so much.
And that
You know,
is such
to
a
stop
pivotal
it.
story.
Yeah,
That is
to-
such a crucial moment when
That-
you
yeah.
and Ralph and everybody else who helped did that and stopped the captures in Washington. That was wonderful.
Yeah. That
Well,
was,
these assistant attorneys general were really wonderful. They were all pretty young, you know, recently out of law school, and they got very involved in it. And they just wanted to find something. It was a very long permit, and they studied every word, and it was great to see what they were able to do. We're all older now, of course, quite a lot
Yeah.
older, but I hope that they're still around and still proud of
But
what they
you
did.
kept, you kept at it. And I remember the Mother's Day protest that we had at the Miami Seaquarium.
Yes.
And
Yes.
how when
You and Ralph
we first
were
got
right in the
involved,
lines.
and Ralph was like, "This is the first time Karen's ever agreed to go to a protest." and
And our son, who was young at that time, was with us too, and a friend of his, and it was a good effort. It didn't bear much results at that time, but it
and we got close, but it did. It raised awareness, and captures were stopped in Washington, and that was huge.
Yeah.
So just
fun.
indebted forever to all the work you two did.
Well, thank you. Likewise.
Well, and thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate that. And that's an important part of history that needs to stay alive. And this is a great way to do it through oral history and storytelling. So you're one of our respected elders.
And I'm not going to bed yet. I'll be staying and listening.
Good, so you can stay and
very
listen.
interested in it.
Okay, great. So any other hands up, or if you want to physically put your hand up, or we'll just pick on you. I'm gonna pick on Dave next if he doesn't raise his hand. Because he's right there. I can just see him.
Yeah, go Dave.
Yeah. All right. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Well, I'll start out with I don't know his name, sorry, but T49A1 today just won the prize for surfacing closer to the rocks than I have ever seen any other whale do in front of the center today.
Wow.
We were watching it was 46 B1s and C2 kind of unspectacularly, heading south, backlit today, and they were heading south, and I gave up on them, went down the computer, and people on the porch who stayed up there said, "Come back." Because T49A1 just showed up out of nowhere between Sunset Point and the reef in front of the center. And I got up there just in time to see his dorsal. It wasn't even high tide. You saw his dorsal fin come up, just really within a whale's length of the rocks in front of the center, which are not a steep drop off. Anyway, it was one of those, wow, he came here, that was closer than any whale I've ever seen come closer to the rocks. And we suspect he might have snuck through Mosquito Pass because he didn't show up again until Green Point. So on Spiden. But anyway, you all want a resident or a transient story?
Probably should have.
Yeah, let's do residents for Orca.
For everyone's background, Dave has
Yeah,
been the reliable identifier of whales at the Center for Whale Research since, what was it, 88 or?
Well, I was an Earth Watcher, like Bonnie, in 1989. Hi, Bonnie. And got invited back the next summer as staff, and I just, never left. Ken never told me to leave, so I stuck around and just got good at dorsal fins. And
Always needed you.
yeah, well, anyway, it's been great. It's been a blast watching whales grow up, and anyway, I well, don't know where to start. Tell you, what, I'll give little just a little story about very first L pod whale I ever saw, L1, who was a I don't know. I sometimes think my memory makes whales of the past bigger than they might have been compared to our current crop of whales, but I'd swear they don't make them like L1 anymore. He was just a massively tall or just big, resident type male and big wavy fin with a real jaunty kink in his fin. And he just was impressive. I mean, there uh, a different time. The story I was going to tell was, I've been in the whaler in the Boston whaler with Ken, and L1 sat under our boat, and he had a third of them sticking out one side of the boat, and then his other third, back third sticking out the other side of the boat, and he was just a impressive sized whale. But there's an encounter where we had L's, and maybe somebody else was around too, but they had come in after being out. This is probably 1991, I think, summer 91. Um, and L1, everybody was spread out. It wasn't like super incredible day other than the whales were there. Pretty day. But L1, yeah, and the boats themselves were spread out. It wasn't too much of a scene. But the boats were really staggered, not in, just boats stopped where they were. Good, just really staggered and, not in line. And L1, as he kind of was going around Battleship Rock, north into Henry Island up toward Stewart Island, he just made it a point to come up right beside every single boat. I mean, there's at least three different boats that he went from one, came up right beside it, didn't have to, and then kind of moved over another couple hundred yards and 300 yards in a different direction, and went by another boat, and then came by ours, and it was just kind of like, he was feeling relaxed and well fed and coming up and seeing everybody. But anyway, there's that one. Have I told you the time where J-Pod left us all their kids to babysit while they went off and did stuff. I remember this actually being a birthday encounter too, but this is, I think, it was somewhere back in the 90s. Well, I think it was 1999 because I remember J35 being a 1-year-old at the time. So I think it must have been, late 90s. But where I think it was, well, certainly Earthwatch era. I can't remember if it was during the team or not, but we're out on high spirits. Our 37-foot motor trimaran that we took our Earthwatchers out on. And it was somewhere down the west side of San Juan Island, False Bay, Eagle Point area. Or no, maybe not. Maybe north of False Bay. Anyway, somewhere off the west side of San Juan Island. But yeah, all the adults kind of took off, spread out, started foraging, but they left almost all their kids just kind of doing circles around High Spirits. I mean, we just sat there, shut down, and it was like they told the kids to stay near this boat and they'd come back and get them later. But we just had them all goofing around by the around the boat while all the moms were off somewhere. And I
That's
remember
great.
J28 and her little sister J35 circling the boat. It was just a gorgeous day. So flat, calm water, and they were close enough that you could see their the whole body as they swim by, and we were doing the same thing. You do what you do when the whales are that close to you by their own accord. You wave at them and say hi. Um, and I remember sticking my hand out to wave at them, and J28, stuck her, or J28 opened her mouth when I waved to her, so it was kind of like, oop. Wasn't anywhere near, but still, it was like, yeah. I don't know if the teeth were for us since she was underwater, but it was kind of funny at the time. But eventually, I think the moms eventually trickled back and wandered off with their kids. But it was kind of neat. It was a bit of an honor. We got
Yeah.
just stay here. We were safe enough to be a center point for them, and but
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's
Anyway,
great.
it could, they're not Southern resident. A little short story, but I tell you all this: the time that I saw a puffin collide with a killer whale. It was in the Eastern Aleutians when I was early 2000s, but on the north side of the Eastern Aleutians in the Bering Sea. And I was working for Craig Mackin, the North Gulf Oceanic Society at the time. And was working a group of resident type whales. They were not being particularly cooperative, and they weren't a group I had seen much of in my time there. But and they're resting, being somewhat, like I said, not helpful in terms of getting the shots that I wanted. But yeah, and a little puffin doing the the ate too much to can't get off the water thing, and bouncing off the wavelets, and as the whales were surfacing, just resting, coming up all mellow like. The puffin just glanced off a medium juvenile's melon, and and it shook up the whale, and he dove real quick, and the puffin had to shake it off too, and it was like, wow, a life happening moment. I have seen a puffin collide with the killer whale. So yeah. Anyway,
Good one.
No, that's
Yep.
okay. I've not heard
anyway,
that.
I can
Oh,
go up.
oh.
Well, we got a few
well,
people in the queue here,
Do
so
we got a couple?
let's
Okay.
see.
Yeah, let's see. And we're about halfway through our time. We're gonna go till about 8:30. So yeah,
Well, I could do mine.
yeah, let me do I'm trying to get into my view so I can see
Oh my God.
see where the hands up are.
So right now we don't have any.
Yeah, I
hands
don't.
up.
So yeah, so if you plan on telling a story or want to, it would be good to put the hands up icons so we know how many
Yes.
stories
If you hit the react
If you hit
button,
the
there's a
react
hand if
button.
you want to.
and hit raise
do-
hand, and then we'll just know how many there's going to be, so we kind of know the timing wise.
Well, I can do mine. It's a short story. Oh,
okay. Oh yeah, there's one.
there's one. All
I know
right.
there's some others.
I see a hand up.
Too. Okay, we'll go with that.
Will
Others
Riley.
can do it anytime, but we'll go with
Yeah.
with Will next. Thanks,
Okay.
Will.
You're muted.
Okay, yeah, so you can go ahead and unmute, and we'll start with you, and then others can put their hand
There we
up
are.
whenever. All right. All right. Well, thank you.
You're still muted somehow. There's no sound.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mike is
There, I just see. Oh, I just heard something.
Anything, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Thank you, guys. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that is behind the Center for Whale Research and the Orca Network. I am one of the participants that gets to receive the daily text messages of where the whales are at all times, and that's such a cool thing to always kind of be in touch and see. I was a kayak guide out on San Juan Island from 2012 to 2018, and in that time, I was along the west side, uh, departing out of Mitchell Bay and usually heading south past Ken's old place. As you can see here, I have a poster, and this is signed by Ken, which is pretty cool. I just wanted to share just like one of the most magical moments that I feel like I got to encounter, which was obviously we have kind of strict regulations in terms of how we would view and be able to see the whales. We would do multi-day trips, again, leaving out of Mitchell Bay on the west side of San Juan Island. And one time when we were kind of heading north and making our way around Henry Island, we were just south of Henry and saw a group of whales coming. It was pretty evident that it was J-pod. And so we did what we can do in that circumstance, which was put ourselves out of the way as close to shore as we can. And usually we try and raft up all the kayakers together in maybe bull kelp, which we can kind of use to kind of hold on to that will just keep us together. And we were just kind of watching as the group was coming. And the next thing we knew, just kind of the kelp all around us started to get pulled down as two or three whales started to be just below us, and we're kind of pulling through the kelp. And being in just a kayak and having the whales just 5-10 feet underneath you with the kelp literally being pulled down, it was very unforgettable. Anytime that I get to see killer whales, whether it's on land or in a boat like a kayak, you kind of surrender. You're not really in control at that time, and it's just a very magical experience. I think there's a lot that we don't know about killer whales, and it's amazing to see the residents here. And since my time being there, I just hope that that they're doing okay. And it's cool. I recognize some people that are here just from my time working whale watch boats, and I got to spend time at Ken's house as well. But yeah, just want to say again how great the Orca Network is, and I'm very happy to be a participant and just a member.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Great story.
And thank you for sharing that and being a part of it. Okay. And then Richard, I think you were going to share Lori's story.
Hello, yes. Hello, yes. I'm going to share a story from Lori. She sent it to me just in case she couldn't get the courage to speak. So give me a second while I open up her email here.
And Richard is our new volunteer coordinator for Orca Network. So I want to introduce him.
Okay. Hello. So this is from Lori. A long time ago, on the beautiful shores of Vancouver, British Columbia, lived an orca named Oriah. Oriah loved the ocean and all the things and creatures connected to it. She loved to swim and play with her friends, and although Oriah lived a similar life to her pods, Oriah felt different very early on in her young life. One day, while Oriah was out exploring the ocean, she wandered off too far and became lost. For many years after, Oriah swam back and forth along the shores of Vancouver, looking for others to play, learn, and to have fun with, and she became somehow forgot all about her past. Until that day that Oriah found herself in an unsafe situation and she became frightened and concerned for her safety. Oriah realized she lost her family for good and she blamed herself. Oriah pushed through because she loved the whimsy and wonder of the ocean. Oriah knew the ocean was a gift, and she vowed to enjoy her gift alone or not until one day when Oriah met a crab named Borpetus. Borpetus taught Oriah why she may feel out of control sometimes and that they have experienced those feelings at times too. From then on, Oriah looked at herself and the other glorious ocean creatures a bit differently, and she felt that she was not lost and alone anymore. Thank you, Lori, for your wonderful story.
That was great. That was great. Thank
Nice.
you, Lori.
Nice.
That was wonderful. Oh, I love that.
Who's
Very,
next?
very nice. Very nice. Love that. Thank you. Okay. I know.
Well, how do we get to
I
somebody
know,
else?
I know there are others out there. I'm looking for hands of people I'm going to pick on.
Why don't I tell my story?
You want to tell your story? Okay. Howie will tell
All right.
his story since people are being shy.
My story goes back to the early 90s. When I was at the Center for Whale Research, it was either 93 or 94. Dave may be able to fill in the details, but it doesn't matter. It was midsummer, July, I believe. And the early morning watch, as the sun was coming up, saw whales coming around Discovery Island from the west, from Strait of Juan de Fuca. That's about 8 or 9 miles away. So at first we just saw a few, and with the 32 power big eye binoculars, we were able to identify that those were J-pod. And they were in a nice tight bunch and coming around that very sharp turn up into Harrow Strait and kind of bunched up. And behind them came K-pod, again, all in a bunch, nice and tightly grouped up. And they were following J-pod. And behind them was L-pod. And this was 93 or 94 when there were about 95 in the southern residence at that time. So that was a lot of whales. And they were perfectly grouped up in their formation, J-pod, K-pod, and L-pod, even alphabetically. So they came up into Harrow Strait, kind of that way, and they went slower and slower. And finally, they kind of stopped, and J-pod turned around and mingled with K-pod and some of L-pod for a short time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then turned around and continued west. But K-pod and L-pod turned around and went back south and west out Strait of Juan de Fuca. So I really got the feeling that there were some intense conversations going on there, that somehow decisions had to be made. There was some kind of political process or something where J-pod, had to say goodbye to K-pod and L-pod and let them turn around and go the other way. And that just seriously impressed me because it showed they're within southern residents that they are affiliated, that they have the identities of their pods, and they are able to work it out between the pods. It was all very, calm and collected and diplomatic, but somehow a decision was made that K-Pod and L-Pod needed to turn around and go back out, and J-Pod would continue up north, up Harris. And we're sure of those IDs because Astrid Van Ginneken paddled out there in a kayak with a friend in a double kayak, and she made those IDs. And if she was here, her photographic memory would remember every detail of that day, I'm sure. But from the porch through the binocs, it all played out very clearly. So that was my story, and I remember it really well. Who's next? There must be some more storytellers here among us.
Are there any staff or whale watchers who saw L-Pod when they were in Penn Cove recently when Ocean Sun brought them in? I know Rachel couldn't make it, but Dave, were you there?
I was.
Or Bonnie was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave?
I was there. Yeah, we were out in the boat when
Oh,
they
were
went
you?
in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to
It
hear.
was a little too windy on the 4th, but on the 3rd, the first day that they went in,
Yeah.
the KCB3, the Center for Whale Research boat was there. So you were on board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Each of you tell those stories. Yeah, start. If you want to start, Dave, and then Bonnie.
yeah. I'm going on memory, but I just remember them being when they actually made it, filed into the cove. I think they're in a couple of big groups. I can't remember how the breakup went, but well, I think usually it's kind of like the L12s and the L54s, and then the 18 slash now 19 Ls in the other group. But yeah, I don't know. We just kind of followed them in. I don't know what I really don't remember. There were some spy hops, but I don't. And they made it at least halfway into the bay,
Right.
before they turned around, and very much like when L-Pod used to come in. There are a lot of times on those arrival days, as you were describing, when L's were coming in and usually following J's and K's, where they would reach a certain point in Harris Strait, and then a lot of milling, and then they'd all turn around and head back out. And it felt a little bit like that, like they made it to a certain point in there, and then okay. And I feel like they were starting to spread out a little when they came out, but I don't, I didn't, I don't remember it being overly incredible in terms of behavior at the time.
That
was that the
3rd. That was November 3rd.
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Well, from reading the reports, the hydrophones were in the water, but they didn't make a peep.
Yeah. We were having trouble getting them hearing anything, or they weren't talking basically. We get the hydrophones when the hydrophones were in the water, they wouldn't talk, and the water clarity was not very good with the drone, so we weren't seeing much. They kind of disappear up there pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, it was the next day that they went all the way in, but that was a gale force wind day, so no boats on the water that day.
But
No.
Bonnie, you saw them on land.
Yeah, so it was amazing. And I guess, knowing the whole story of everything with Penn Cove and living here, we were all sitting. Long Point is the beach that's right at the mouth of Penn Cove. And of course, there must have been, I don't know a lot of people out there thinking, are they actually really going to come into Penn Cove? And we were standing on Long Beach and with our arms pointed out to the other side, the north side, and that if they cross this line, they're in Penn Cove. And of course they did. And I mean, people were crying and screaming and cheering, and they did go in about halfway, and there was a lot of spy hopping. And my anthropomorphic thought was, they're asking L-25, where are we, Grandma? What is the place? Because she was there, of course, and she's the only one that knows that place and what happened there. But the next day, it was super windy. Just, you couldn't hold your camera straight. But we were all out there again because they came back in and they literally were flying across the waves. And I remember seeing Wave Walker do that, and everybody's like, he's literally walking as a whale can walk across the waves because it was crazy windy. But they all, Ocean Sun was just right in there. And then that day they did go all the way down to, I guess that the old pier that's across from Coopville is where that captures actually took place. And I didn't see this, but I remember Rachel telling me that they went down there and they stayed in like a resting line for a pretty long time in that exact spot. And you have to wonder, like, why did they do that? I don't think there's any fish in Penn Cove, so to speak, that they would, and there was no hunting behavior or anything like that. But I have to count that as one of the most emotional encounters of my whale watching. It was just, and I think, living here, and to me, it kind of broke the bad karma spell. So, because Penn Cove's a wonderful place, but that always had that bad thing happened here. And so, and I've discussed it with a lot of other people, and they kind of feel the same way. And we were just so happy to see them come in, and it was amazing.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else have stories to share? I know there are people out there who've seen whales. Marla, Karina, Fred, Colin.
Can I share a story?
Yes.
Yes. Who's this?
It's hard to use all these buttons on my phone, so I'm not very familiar.
Sure. Yes.
Is it a good time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go for it.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard, for sharing my story for me. I get really emotional because it's a new story. I just wrote it recently. I kind of wrote it like it was kind of like it just came out of a feeling, and so I wrote it in literally 30 seconds or so. Like I just grabbed my phone and I went and I just kind of left it as it is. And so it's a little wonky, but I'll work on it and make it a lot better in the future. So thank you, Richard, for reading it for me because I get really emotional. I'm a little bit of a tender-hearted person. So I have I'm from Generation X, so I was born a long, long time ago, and back then, I'm from Vancouver as well. And in Vancouver, we have the Vancouver Aquarium, which it sounds like all of you know about since you guys all sound like a bunch of real good experts. And so when I was a kid, I was really small. I think I was in kindergarten. I was in kindergarten and grade one-ish. And so for field trips, we used to go to the Vancouver Aquarium to check out, all the stuff in there. I had one focus, and that was the whale that was in the Vancouver Aquarium big pool at the time. And I think her name was Biosa. That's how I remember speaking about her, as Biosa, but I'm not exactly sure. I can't really ask anybody if that was how her proper pronunciation was, but she had a couple of calves, and I used to just love going to the aquarium and just sitting there and watching her. And I knew then that there was something wrong because I was like, how come her thing is like that? And how come this is, and I was only just a little kid, but I was like, how come this and how come that? And I kept asking them a million questions. And so they were like, well, you know what, just go downstairs. And so there's an underground tank part where you can go and look in the glass. And they're like, just go downstairs and just hold something up to the window and ask the whale. They were tired of me. So I did. So I went out, and I was only 5. I was in kindergarten or something like this. And I was such a tomboy. I used to wear these old bag jeans and, just my big brother's hand-me-downs. And so, I mean, I just look like a little bag of nut, like this little tiny thing, little tiny. Like I'm already small, but imagine when I'm 5 years old, I was this big. And so I went up to the window in the Vancouver Aquarium, and I wrote a note on I don't know what I wrote. I think I wrote my favorite drink is 7-Up. It was something to do with 7-Up. And so I put the note up to the window, and Biosa came down and looked right at my note. And then carried on, of course. And so I just always remember that memory because I had a little bit of a busy childhood doing other things besides having all that good fun. So that was one of my most funnest things ever that ever happened to me. And it just kept that little memory and that little like special time in my life alive because I knew that it was real. I was like, I know there's a Vancouver Aquarium. I know that there's a big old whale inside there. And then because of that, throughout my life, I just ended up going to places where there was whales and being closely connected to the ocean and the other animals that come out of the ocean. And so it's just really saved my life, probably. I think that's my first story with my first
Thank
orca.
you. Yeah,
That's
good one.
great.
Thank you, guys.
I love that. And that brings up a story that I'll tell.
There's Lisa, are you waving your hand, Lisa? Oh, no, just saying hi. Okay.
Well, that brings up, I was going to tell a story and I wasn't sure which one. But when we were working to bring Toki home, Lolita at the Miami Seaquarium, who was captured off Whidbey Island in Penn Cove. And I remember, I can't remember if it was I think it was the first time I got to go see her. And it was hard to go see her in a tank. And it was hard to see her performing because that's not how I had seen orcas. And it was hard to see people cheering and watching them perform because the context was just so awful for me and for other people. They didn't have the context of seeing them in the wild, and it was just another show. But afterwards, when we back before they realized who we were, and they would let us go spend time with her next to the tank. And I had brought just a little snapshot of one of the newest southern resident orca calves. And it was before cell phones, the olden days. And so I had brought it. And so I was just by the side of the tank, and she came right up to me, and I held up the little snapshot, not knowing if she could see anything at all. And she came right up and like looked at one eye and looked at the other. And I'm like, this is one of your newest cousins or, nieces or nephews or, who knows, but this is one of your new family members. And, we'd really like to get you home. And we're really, and it's like she just hung out there. And a lot of times with Toki, I felt not that she knew what I was saying, but she could feel intention. And I know that there were trainers that she really liked and some trainers she really disliked. And she was a pretty good judge of people. And but you could just feel that connection. And I know with Keiko, the Free Willy whale, that he really loved kids who would come to see him, both in Mexico and in Oregon. So your story reminded me of that and those connections that were made. And it's there is that connection. And that's one thing, Orca Network, we believe the science, and we educate about the science, but we also believe, and in the native tradition, there is the rich cultural, spiritual belief, and the oral traditions that they've passed down, and the belief that the orcas are their ancestors, and are their spiritual beings. And to me, and when I got involved, and part of the reason I did get involved is I can really feel that, whatever you want to call it, that you really feel that connection. And I think that's one reason Orca Network has been so successful, is that when people see orcas, and with gray whales, we've seen it too, but especially orcas, there seems to be that real magical, spiritual, or whatever emotional connection that people have. And that's part of the reason when I started the sighting network, I just realized the more people can actually see orcas and make that connection, the more they're going to want to take care of them and take care of their habitat. And that it's just such, I just get goosebumps thinking about it. It's such an amazing feeling when you have that experience. And it's just so awesome. When I read on our Facebook page, or, somebody, I just had my first experience with the orca, or, or seeing orcas, or, little kids seeing orcas. And I just love hearing about that, and love hearing your stories. And I want to hear more. We have more than 15 minutes more. So tell us more stories. And thank you for the stories you shared so far. So anybody else, you can just either shout out or raise your hand or just start talking. If the other
Karen?
Should I talk? This is Karen.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to mention briefly two people that Ralph and I did get to know and have kept in touch with over the years, and that's Paul and Helena Spong in Canada. And we went up to visit them one time at Hansen Island, and that was a great experience to see their operation there and see how close they are to the orcas that come by so frequently up there. And I know that Paul, I think, was initially going to be a brain surgeon or something, and he started studying about whales' brains and became so interested in that he kind of changed his career path and started doing the work with orcas. And I think they've done wonderful things in terms of the orca sound program that they have, and the way that people learn so much from the acoustics that the orca sound people have developed.
Can I jump in and tell his iconic story for him?
Yes.
I mean, it'd be great if Paul could tell this story himself. I would love to hear it from him. But I mean, it's kind of famous that he was hired by the Vancouver Aquarium to do psychological experiments on Skana, who was the first captive southern resident orca that was in the Vancouver Aquarium. And it was a visual acuity, visual perception, to be able to see how well Skana could correctly identify a dot of, decreasing size, to find, exactly what was the ability of orcas to see with their eyes, So he was doing this experiment, and according to protocols, it was very repetitive. You've got to have a database with a whole lot of samples. And so he was conducting that, and Skana was getting everything 100% right. And then at some point, she got everything 100% wrong. And he began to realize then that she was doing an experiment on him, and that set him back. And so he kind of he dropped his pad and pencil and picked up his flute and started playing songs to her, and began to advocate for no more captivity for orcas at that point, which impacted his employment status. And so he was, out on his ear immediately. And that's when he went up to Hansen Island and started Orca Lab up there, and has been, educating, advocating, and just observing and documenting the northern residents and transients up there since then. That was his career as a orca, interpreter, basically.
And he was with Greenpeace for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think right. Yeah, before he went up north, he he helped to found Greenpeace, I believe. Yeah.
Interesting people. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else out there? We have time for a couple more stories. Dave, Marla, Stephanie,
Bunch of shy
Karina.
people.
Oh, I know.
I know you've got
Come
stories.
on, we have some of our.
I'll tell a quick story.
Okay, good. That sounds like Marla, right?
Yeah, that's me.
And so Marla has been a member of our whale sighting staff for how many years?
Almost 4.
And had just become our marketing coordinator and still does some of our sighting network work as well.
Yeah, so this was back in 2023. Was on shift that morning, and J-Pod had been in the area, so knew that it was a high possibility that they would come down to near where I live, which is Vashon Island. They tend to come down East Passage and then kind of slingshot around the island and go up the west side of the island and then back up towards Possession Triangle. So that morning, it was an early start, and they were here and met them at the north end of the island, and then watched them pass at Point Robinson with a whole bunch of people. They were very exuberant, lots of tail slaps, lots of breaches. For all accounts, it looked like a normal pass. It was really beautiful and fun to watch. And after that, went back home really quick to get a bite to eat because my shift was done, and then was going to wait and meet them on the other side of the island when they would go up Colville's Passage, which they usually do. And then was eating lunch and got a text from my coworker Serena, and she was like, and she was on shift, and she was like, do Southern residents usually go into Quartermaster Harbor? And I said, no, I won't say they never do, but that's definitely unusual. And I've been watching for a long time and have never seen them even, point that way. So then she texted back and said they're going into Quartermaster Harbor. And Quartermaster Harbor has, when you go, it's kind of like an inlet in between Maury Island and Vashon. So there's outer Quartermaster Harbor and then a little kind of narrow area and then inner Quartermaster Harbor. So there's kind of two sets of, or two bodies of water right there. And so I immediately dumped my lunch, jumped in the car, did not know where to go because this was not territory that I'm familiar with watching whales at all. Like whales just don't go in here very often. The only other whales that I know have gone in there are the a couple of the T65A boys. So other than that, it's just not a place that they go on the regular. So I went to Dockton, and they were past Dockton, so they were past the outer quartermaster harbor, and they went all the way into the inner quartermaster harbor, which is the last place I thought they would go. So went to Rab's Lagoon to see if I could catch them, and could see them from far away, and they looked like they were going to head back out. And so ran down to a beach called Manzanita to hopefully catch their exit, and sat there and waited for about an hour with some other people, and looked through binoculars and tried to find them, and could see just little pieces of fins and where they were, and they were still far from me and not in an area that was very visible for people. And then got a text from a couple more friends that were up in Inner Quartermaster Harbor, and they were like, they're coming back here. So jumped in the car, ran back there, and just could not believe what I was seeing, that they were all the way in. It's just a very, very small bay. And they were not acting their normal at all. They were doing these very, very tight, almost pacing. And then they would divide themselves almost like a mini greeting ceremony, and then go back into each other. And they would do this over and over and over in these tight little circles. And then every once in a while, they would break away, and there'd be like one or two breaches, but very, very, very subdued, very, very emotional. Something was definitely going on with the pod. I have no idea what it was. I have my theories, but it was unusual, and people were talking about it, and not sure what to think of it. And we waited for them to leave. They didn't leave. They went deeper, deeper in, close to the Burton Marina. And then they did that until dusk. It was really rainy. It was not a very nice weather day. When I left, I was just emotionally spent. There was a very heaviness to the air. Their behavior was concerning. Didn't know what I was going to wake up to, and went to bed that night just very sad. Something about that was a very sad experience. It seemed very intentional that they went to that spot. It didn't seem like they, took a wrong turn or anything. It was intentional that they were there, and they had spent the night. We weren't sure if they would leave during the night, but they did not. They did leave right at dusk that next morning, and tried to meet them as they were leaving, and missed it because they were faster than I've ever seen them travel ever. So ran to the west side of the island to try to catch them, and got down to my spot right as they were passing, and the whole pod was porpoising. And it turns out that they were leaving about 4 times their normal speed, and they didn't stop until they were in Admiralty and past that. So whatever happened, whatever was going on, it was emotional and sad, and so curious about why they went into Quartermaster Harbor, but they've been back to the island since. So something wasn't so bad that they didn't want to come back. They haven't been back to Quartermaster that I know of. But that was a very deep and emotional experience watching them. It sounds a little woo-woo, but like there's a park in outer Quartermaster Harbor called Dockton Park. And for years, I've dreamt about watching whales from that park. and whales just they don't go there ever. And then witnessed J-Pod, and those dreams stopped. So have never had a dream about watching whales from Dockton since then. So a little strange. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a heavy experience.
Thank you for telling that, Marla.
Yeah. I remember that happening.
I do too, and they're incredibly rapid exit all the way. I mean, I think they covered. I don't know. I blocked it out at the time of how fast they went, and they were going something like 7 or 8 knots, which is double their normal travel speed, all the way out of Admiralty Inlet.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was faster than I've ever seen them in the whole pod. It wasn't just some of them, it was all of them. They were out of
Marla,
here. Yeah.
that may have been very similar to what happened at Penn Cove because Quartermaster Harbor was where they tried to capture orcas back in the 60s.
There's got to be some kind of history. Yeah.
Okay, well,
it could be.
that certainly could explain it, that they had some kind of experience there, or not all of them, obviously, because virtually all were born after that. But
yeah,
that's what's really interesting, is if there is something in their history that only a few were alive for, but somehow they all felt and in some way had this intense, commemoration or some kind of
storytelling
yeah,
circle.
yeah, well,
We're having their own storytelling.
they know their history.
The elders were
I
telling
guess
it.
is what we have to conclude.
Yeah, those little mini greeting ceremonies, that's what was getting me very confused.
Yeah, very much like J-Pod in Penn Cove. Lined up and porpoising together and pacing back and forth, and very similar. Yeah, thank you. Good one.
Yeah.
That was coming up on 8:30.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I see Bonnie's hand up.
Bonnie, do you have another story to tell? Or was your
Time? Do we have time? I can make it really quick.
Go ahead, Bonnie, and then I'll close us out.
Okay, so this is recent from my journal. It was Friday the 13th of 2023, and it was a lucky day because the Rezzies were all down south, and they started coming up Admiralty, and they were really spread out. They made it through Possession Sound, where they often stall out sometimes, but they made it through there, and they got to Shore Meadows, which is still on the south end, past Possession Sound, but still more the south end of Whidbey. And as they neared Bush Point, which is one of our favorite spots, they came close to Whidbey, like so close. And they all grouped up. And I think it wasn't a complete super pod, but we estimated at least 50 whales. And they streamed by Bush Point just pretty much at our feet. And that was super emotional. And then we all ran up to Lagoon Point, which is the next spot going north, and they were still pretty close. And I just couldn't believe that it was this stream of whales just, and people were calling out their numbers and their names and who it was, and it was just amazing. It was really amazing. So thanks for the opportunity to tell my stories, because I like to talk about whales a lot, like we all do. So thank you very much, and it was great to see everybody.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Bonnie.
we had an amazing encounter at Bush Point also when they came in really, really close.
Yeah.
And if I have time, I just saw that Hannah had asked about Luna.
And Michael and Suzanne.
Yeah, and I just wanted to quickly say, I know we're out of time, but that we actually saw Luna when he was born.
Yeah.
And Dave was probably, were you at the center that day?
I missed most of the calf drama with Luna, yeah, because I was in Southeast Alaska, but I because he was firmly back with his mom, L67, by the time I got back from Southeast. So,
well, because he was, we were at the center. What it was, you were just happened to be in town. You were in Miami with Lolita, and it just happened to be in town, and we were at the center, and there was a report of a lone orca headed towards the center. So we were all looking and thinking it was a transient. And so we were looking, and she came in view right in front of the center, and Ken's like, "What's that behind her?" And it was a little calf. And it's like, "Oh, there's a brand new calf." And then it was like, "That's not a transient, that's L67." And but she was alone, which seemed really weird for a southern resident, to be traveling alone with, and especially with a new calf. So Luna had kind of a weird beginning. And then he kept showing up with different moms for a while, so they weren't sure who his mom was for a while. And then, you know,
Then he showed up in Nootka Sound.
yeah, and then but he was like, so our special calf, and, you know, like Howie was only there for a few days and had to go back to Florida. And so it just, like, he was our special calf. And, you know, it was just so cool that we got to see him right after he was born. And then we got, you know, the horrible news that he was missing. And at that time, you know, and almost all times if a calf is missing, they're gone. And then getting the amazing news that suddenly he was reborn when he was found up in Nootka Sound. And that being such wonderful news. And then the whole saga of his years up until 2006 being up in Nootka Sound, and Michael Parfit and Suzanne Chisholm, who were up there during those years and became close friends of us, and Ken Balcom and many others who did such an amazing job telling the story of all of that, and are just amazing people. But they kept us and all of Orca Network's followers during that time in touch with what was happening, because you know, at first there was some communication about what was going on, and then it was really shut down. And for some of those years, nobody knew what was happening with Luna, and they just stayed up there and kept in touch with us, and we were able to share that word with people. And the whole thing was very close to our hearts. And so I think it was you, Hannah, that asked that question, and that you had read the book or saw the movie. And he was a very special little whale. And Mike and Suzanne are very neat people who tried their hardest, and many people tried. Ken Balcom really wanted to do what I think would have worked best, would be to lead him out to the ocean, you know, with a boat follow thing, which is really all he would have needed, I think, to get him back to his family. We were all trying really hard for him not to end up in a tank, which is what a lot of people wanted. And so, you know, there was a lot of drama during those years, but unfortunately he didn't make it home.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And just looking at our time, I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight to share a story, and to those who came to listen and learn, and all of you for helping us celebrate Orca Action Month and our 25th anniversary of Orca Network. I want to say also thank you to the whole staff and board of Orca Network for all the amazing work that they do connecting people with whales of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. And again, I'm so excited and humbled to be taking on my new role, working with everyone to continue that work. I'm just going to pop in the chat here. If you're looking for something else to do to get involved, we are recruiting members for our West Seattle Grand Parade Pod on July 18th. So if you'd like to come walk in a really fun parade and pass out stickers and have everybody cheer about how much they love Orca Network, please send me an email. It's just Stephanie@orcanetwork.org, and I'll get you more information about that. And one little whale that we didn't mention yet tonight is L130. I think it's really auspicious that we are welcoming L130 at the end of Orca Action Month. That's another sign of some hope for the future of the southern resident orcas. And if you haven't yet had the chance to encounter them in the wild, I hope the stories that we shared here tonight helped you help to reinforce why this population is so very precious. I hope that you will share some of these stories with your friends and family and help us grow the community of humans who care about our neighbors beneath the waves. So thank you again, everyone, for being here this evening, and I hope we'll see each other soon on the beaches or at an Orca Network event or the West Seattle Grand Parade, something like that. So thank you all.
Yeah. And thank you for
Thanks, everybody.
everyone's stories. It was a wonderful circle tonight, and we'll hopefully be doing this again. Love hearing all your stories, and hope you get to see a whale soon. Thank you all for tuning in. And
Thank you all. Good night.
good night. Happy
Thank
Orca.
you.
Thank
Good night.
Yes, thank you.